Welcome back, Dr. Robert Svoboda ji. You're a frequent flyer in this podcast. It's such an honor to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Svoboda ji, last time it was the 100th episode of Ayurvedic Healing and Beyond. And we were discussing about the law of karma and destiny. And many people wanted to go back to that same topic. And sometimes people end up getting into some trouble in their life and they are not able to connect the dots. And also the causality, what is the cause and effect? People are not able to connect what is exactly the cause, and because they are not able to identify what could be the cause because I'm going through certain problems, they think, okay, I'm destined to have a bad life. They connect it and put it in the wrong way. But later they also realize maybe this was the best thing that happened later stage. So many people misunderstand or overestimate the law of karma. So I would like to have a clarity from your perspective. How important is law of karma in our life?
My Jyotish Guruji, Mantriji, used to say that after God created the law of karma, he was able to retire. Because the law of karma it's not the kind of law that you and I think of as a law. We have the samsara, we have the parliament, we have the Congress, and they all get together and they decide on something. It's the fundamental principle of how our universe is put together. Our universe is put together, and basically, and very basically, it's Newton's third law of motion. There's an action, and whenever there's an action, there will be some kind of reaction. Whenever anything is done, there is going to be some kind of, if you hit the wall with your fist, you will regret it because the wall is not moving, but the force that you have transmitted to the wall will come back into your hand. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what the law of karma is. It's whatever you are putting out is going to come back to you. And this is something that people have been, that the sages and saints and avatars have been teaching and preaching for thousands of years. It's whatever you do, you should expect something similar to come back in your direction. And it's been said in different ways. Jesus said, do unto other people as you would have them do unto you, because that's what's going to happen. If you behave in a particular way towards someone, that person may not, but somehow, somewhere, that kind of behavior is going to come back to you. Now, one thing I should emphasize is, the more you identify with any particular action, the more that action will behave as a karma for you. Because the law of karma is really extremely complicated. And it's said that even the devatas, the gods and goddesses, they don't understand it completely either. Mm-hmm. They don't completely understand that when they are doing certain things, they believe, I'm a devata. I have this, astitwa, I have this haysiyat. And because I am a devata, I can do this and I can do that. But the I is still there. The identification is still there, and therefore the karma is still there. And this is why as I have been taught, the planet Saturn, Shani Maharaj, is all of the grahas represent ways by which the effects of your karmas come back to you. But Shani is the one who makes you experience all the things you would prefer not to experience. Mm-hmm. Nobody really wants to experience old age. Nobody really wants to experience disease. And nobody really believes they're going to die. They see everyone else dying and they think, oh my God, everyone else is dying. But secretly inside they think, I will be the one person who will not die.
Exception.
Until they do. So they believe they will be the exception, and that also is a karma. And they continue with that until they fall over. So everything that you do that you identify with as a karma is a karma. The complication comes when you start to factor in. And it's complicated enough for you to think, okay, I have been, as the great sages have informed us, I have been born many, many times. I've experienced life in many different ways. And wherever you have been, and maybe you have not been a human. In fact, it's likely you have not been a human that often. More likely you've been an animal or a plant or something else. But you also have your own ahankara. You have your own sense of identity. And even if you're a plant, you were thinking, I am going to stick my roots over here, and that's a karma. I'm going to put these leaves here in front of this other plant because I want the sun for myself. That's also a karma. It's a very, very small karma compared to what you and I can do. But it's still, that's the kind of karma that starts to accumulate over many, many different lifetimes, many janmas. So what happens is a person thinks that, oh, I'm having all these difficulties. I never did anything bad in this lifetime. How could I be having difficulties? But they don't think about not just the last lifetime or the last 10 lifetimes, but what about the last 1 million lifetimes? All of those different karmas that have been influencing how they have been, where they've been born, what they have the capability to do, and everything else. And that's complicated enough. But then we have to add in shared karma. So your karmas, one way of looking at how this works is your karmas are collected in your karana sharir, your causal body, which is not really a body, but it's just sort of it's a space. It's part of Akash Tattva that is holding on to these karmas around you. And as the karmas become ripe enough for you to experience, then they influence your mind and they put you in the right place at the right time for you to experience them. Okay, so that, I mean, even though the law of karma is complicated, people think, okay, it's all my karma. It is all your karma, but it's also not all your karma, because you are also participating in the karma of your parents. And why are you participating in the karma of your parents? Because you are using their genetic material. You have been eating their food. You have been associating with their relatives, etc. So all of the experience of life that they have had, you are also participating in. It's not the same thing, but you are a bhagidad, you're a participant. And that's just your family. But what about the people in your extended family, in your clan? What about the people in your community? What about the people in your city? What about the people in your state, in your country? And of course, of the species that we're in, the human species has done some very unfortunate karma. And we are now seeing the results of this unfortunate karma. We are seeing floods, we are seeing wars. Just now, Los Angeles is burning. So everyone who lives in Los Angeles is experiencing I have friends who live there, and fortunately their houses have not burned, but they are inhaling the very polluted air from all of these toxins and plastics and everything that have burned, and they have ash everywhere. And they are having to deal with the fact that moving around is difficult and getting food is difficult and there's not enough water and so on. So they're all sharing the karmas that are part of that one city. 250 people go up in an airplane and it crashes. Those people probably have all come from different places. They have different ages, they have different families, many of them may be from different countries, but their karmas all brought them together in this one location at this one moment, just so they could all experience the results of some particular shared karma, which might have gone back. We don't have any idea. So when you add in the possibilities that are implied by shared karma, which is in the Maha Karana Shabir, the greater causal body, then it becomes really, really, really complicated. Far too complicated to try to use human thought and human reason to understand. So at the best, you can hope to get some ideas about what kind of karmic influences are on you. Sometimes you can get it from Jyotish. Sometimes you can get it from the testimony of Aptavakya, of knowledgeable and or saintly people. Sometimes it's just a matter of examining your own experience. Sometimes you will try very hard to do something and you are not able to do so. But in some other aspect of your life, you try it and immediately succeed. Two different aspects of life, one very successful, one extremely not successful, but you're the same person. All because of karmic patterns that have been developing over a long time. So there are ways to get impressions and hints about what's going on with karma, but as far as knowing it, it's very, very, very difficult.
If we have to analyze it and say, people, there is this question. So if it is my karma, then maybe I just need to endure it. But maybe there is something that I should also do to minimize the burden of these karmas. So how to know that, okay, these are karmic things, maybe something to do with my ancestors or my community. Maybe I should turn it around and minimize that burden. So how to know that this is where I have to be a better human or having much more nobler thoughts or nobler actions so that we can minimize these karmic baggages?
Well, I certainly think it is a desirable thing to behave in a noble way as much as possible. And inevitably, you are going to find some areas of life where you have difficulty. You can be fairly confident that if you are having difficulties in your life, that those difficulties are coming because of your karmas. Now, you may be able to identify, this person is afflicting me. This person is deliberately causing trouble for me. But why is that person causing deliberate trouble for you and not for him or not for her or not for someone else? There is some kind of sambandha, some kind of connection. My mentor used to like to call it runa-anubandhana. Anubandhana, a binding, a bondage, of runa, of karmic debt. And usually it happens that it's not just a very simple thing. I owe you 100 rupees, I pay you 100 rupees, you go away, I go away, everybody's happy. Usually it's more like, well, I owe you 100 rupees that has to be paid by this date, but you owe me 500 rupees that has to be paid by that date. Whereas, in fact, in the context of that, I actually borrowed an extra 200 that has to be, so the karmic accounting becomes very complicated. And sometimes if you start to think, now I have paid this off and I will never have this problem again, and then you have this problem again, and then you start to think, I have done some other bad, it is probably better not to think too much about it, and probably better try to simply think about the fact that in Jyotish in particular, we talk about 3 different degrees of karma. Drida, adrida, and drida. So drida karma is the kind of karma you predict on. It's where you see, for good or for bad, for nice results or for problematic results, it's where you see several different indications that are all pointing in the same direction. So what that means is, whatever karmas you've performed in that context, you've performed them repeatedly, and that has created a certain kind of momentum, karmic momentum, which is just like any other kind of momentum. If you're driving down the road very slowly and somebody jumps in front of the car, you can stop quickly. If you're driving very fast and something jumps in front of you, you may not be able to stop. The difference is just how fast you're going. So the more that you perform the same actions, good or bad, the greater the momentum you're directing. Just from the perspective of your neurology, you're creating a pattern, a pathway in your nervous system. The more you do one thing, the more you will want to do it. This could be something good. This could be, singing. That could be very good. Or it could be gambling, which is probably not going to be so good. But the more that you do something, the more there's a tendency for your nervous system to want to go back to that. Part of this is due to just the way the nervous system works, because it assumes that if you're doing something repeatedly, you're going to need to continue doing it, so it wants to prepare itself so it doesn't have to put extra effort every time into doing it. And part of it, of course, is the nature of tamas. Tamas is a good thing. If there was no tamas, there would be no stability in the world at all. But people employ tamas in the wrong way. They do it to get into habits that are not benefiting them, and then they wonder why those habits are causing them trouble. So people wonder about why me, when it's better simply to be as neutral about the situation as possible, and recognize that no matter what happens to me is my karma. It may be happening, somebody may be walking down the street and hands me a banana. This is my karma to receive this banana. That person just happens to have enough of a karmic connection to me to be delivering me the banana. Someone else may also deliver me something that's not so pleasant as the banana. That had to come to me, and it just came via that individual. One of the problems that the law of karma creates for people is that it is natural to connect the two things together. And you think, oh, this person is giving me a banana today, maybe give me 2 tomorrow, maybe I will get a mango next week. And you start to expect that that person will always do good things for you. Or that person will always do bad things for you. But you don't know how long that particular pattern is going to continue. There could be a moment where it shifts entirely in the other direction. So you can understand that there is some kind of connection between you and another person. Because how many people are on Earth at the moment? More than 8 billion people. You're not going to meet, certainly not 8 million people in your lifetime. I might meet 80,000 people, maybe. Most people will meet 8,000 people. Many people will only meet 800. Some people will not meet any more than 80. So those people, that's a tiny percentage of the total number of people you could meet. And you're only going to meet the people that you have some kind of rananubandhana with, some kind of karmic connection, because those are the only people that are going to find themselves in the same place at the same time so that you can interact with them. So when you start to understand that these people that I am interacting with, that I'm working with, these people are people that I have some kind of connection with, and then you may want to think to yourself, you may want to ask yourself, is this the kind of person that I want to continue having a connection with? Because we need to think not just about the past, what's happened in the past, we need to think about what's going to happen in the future. So it's common to think of all of the karmas that you have performed in the past, and all of the shared karmas that you have some part of, all together. That's usually called sanchita karma. Sanchita, it's all collected together. But it's not all maturing, it's not all becoming, it's not all coming to fruition at the same time. Mm-hmm. So what happens is that only a certain amount of karma is going to come to the place, because let's say that I have a karma with somebody, someone has killed me 300 years ago. According to the law of karma, I will get the opportunity at some point in the future to kill that person also. I don't have to, but the opportunity will come to me. But the opportunity will come only when I have the ability to do that, and only when that person has the ability to meet me again. That might not happen for decades. That might not happen for centuries. So the law of karma, which doesn't require, it's happening automatically as part of the functioning of the Akash Tattva. Law of karma is working all the time. And it's all of the karmas that have come to fruition determine where you're going to be located, at what time, so you can interact with all of these things that you have to interact with at that time. That's your prarabdha karma. That determines each individual birth. Mm-hmm. But after the prarabdha karma have put you somewhere, then you have kriyamana karma and agama karma, which basically means the karmas you are performing in this lifetime, because you're still performing karmas. I am eating this, I am going there, I. You're identifying with all these things. And in addition to the karmas that you're performing, you're also planning, I am going to go somewhere. That's also a karma. Because if you were planning to go somewhere and you can't go there, you will be upset, or you'll be happy, or you'll be relieved, or there's an investment of your personality in the planning also. Mm-hmm. So there's karma involved there too. So the prarabdha has come from the past. The karmas you are performing in this lifetime are happening right now. And based on the sanchit karma that's still there and the karmas you're performing right now, that's going to determine what's going to happen to you next time. Mm-hmm. And this is all ongoing. So people, they get all caught up in the idea, oh, I'm having this problem in my life and it must be my karma. Well, yes, it is your karma. So to try to examine these situations calmly without emotion attached. Because maybe you have a challenge, maybe it's difficult, maybe you want to get married and it doesn't ever seem to work out. And you start to get frustrated. You don't have to get frustrated. You could acknowledge, apparently, getting married is not working out for me, at least right now. I will do something else. But often that's not the way it is. Often that's the one thing
that they hold on to.
That they're holding on to. And often the reason they're holding on to it is because of some past karma that is causing them to hold on to it. So that they can experience the dissatisfaction, the unhappiness of not being able to achieve it. Now, then you will ask yourself, why did this happen? And inevitably, there will be people who will have opinions about that. There is a text, I don't know if you've ever run across it, called the Virasimhavaloka. And the Virasimhavaloka claims that it can identify which diseases have been caused by which karmas. And sometimes probably that's true. And sometimes that's probably definitely not true. But it's an experiment, it's an attempt to try to make sense of something that's very difficult to make sense of because it is beyond the capacity of human reason to comprehend. The most important, in my opinion, the most important thing to do is to identify what things you can do in your life and what things you can't do, and acknowledge the things that you can't do. Try to find some way to become comfortable with not being able to do them. Maybe you can convince yourself, okay, I will try to do this. You want to learn to ski, but every time you do, you fall down and break your leg. If you try to do that over and over again, you're going to end up with several broken legs, and this will not be good for you. Maybe you can say to yourself, I will try once every 2 years to learn to ski. And during the interim time, you will build yourself up and you will study the skiing videos and you will get advice from expert skiers and then after 2 years, you'll try again. And maybe you will go a little further than you did before, but you fall over again. Maybe this time you don't break your leg, but you just sprain your ankle. Some improvement has occurred. That doesn't mean that automatically the improvement will continue. That does mean that you can identify that the karmas that you have performed have influenced the karmas from the past. Now, influence doesn't mean necessarily totally changed.
It's marginal improvement.
Marginal improvement. As my mentor used to say, if you were destined to fall in the ditch, you're going to fall in the ditch. Unless someone comes along and takes that karma away from you. But who's going to do that? Well, you have to have some very advanced individual who can do that. And why would they do that? They would only do that if they were trying to teach you a lesson or convince you of something, because otherwise they're managing all kinds of other things. And after all, you fall in the ditch, okay, maybe you will damage yourself a little, but at least you'll be able to get up and keep moving on. So they will think, why am I bothering about you falling in the ditch? However, it will make a big difference how deep the ditch is, how far you fall, what condition you're in when you fall. So what you can do sometimes is influence the magnitude of the event. The event itself, probably you're going to have to experience. But the magnitude of the event may be, you may be able to influence, and that may make a tremendous difference. If the ditch is this deep and you fall into it, well, so what? If the ditch is 50 meters deep, that's not going to be so amusing, because even if you don't damage yourself, how are you getting out? So this is where people are encouraged to perform upayas. So the concept of the upaya, the remedy, is that you find ways, and sometimes they're very symbolic ways in Jyotish, and sometimes they're just practical things. You want to have a child and you're having trouble having a child. Feed children, take care of children, do things to align yourself better with children. Number one, you will experience some of the anubhav, some of the experience that you would have if it was your own child, but it may also assist you in reducing the magnitude of the problem, so that perhaps at some point you might have a child of your own. Now, because there was there may still be some problem. The pregnancy may be difficult, or the child may have some defect or something like that. But at least that desire of yours could be fulfilled. The degree to which you will be able to do that will be determined by, in the context of your childbearing karmas, are those karmas drudha, or are they adrudha, which means they are not fixed, so with some planning you can achieve it without much obstacle, or are they drudha adrudha, meaning they're fixed, but they're not totally fixed yet, and if you work very hard, you do some serious focus and some serious recitation of mantras and some serious remedies of various kinds, then you may be able to shift the intensity of the obstacle so that you may be able to change the outcome in some way. But that requires really focused attention that you really, really apply not just your energy to, but your conviction that this is the right thing to do. Because you have to have faith in order for any kind of, this applies to medicine also. If you want to get well, you need to have faith in somebody, in the doctor, in the hospital, in the nurse, in the medicine, in the type of medicine. You have to have faith in something, because the faith connects your prana to the part of your organism that is out of balance, and only if the prana can get into that part of the organism is the organism going to change. So faith and prana, attention and prana, attention, faith, prana, they all work together.
Interconnected.
They're all interconnected. And that's one of the, often, not always, but often that's one of the real challenges that people, instead of understanding, okay, this situation, here, my situation is challenging. I'm blind. Well, some people will just sit around and with their hand out and wait for somebody to give them something. Other people will try to learn how to read Braille and move around with their stick. And a few people have learned to see with other parts of their bodies. There have been a few young people who have learned how to use echolocation, just like bats do, making noises and hearing the
feedback,
the echo, the feedback, and being able to move around like that. But in order to do that, that requires a tremendous amount of attention, a tremendous amount of repetition. So that's a very serious upaya. The being born blind, we have to think of as being drudha karma. But still, if you work at it, you may be able to have some influence on it. But it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of conviction that this effort is going to do something for me. And not everyone has that amount of focus and conviction.
Now, Svobodaji, when you mention awareness, you were mentioning about awareness, being aware of that I'm facing these difficulties. So sometimes, let's imagine I am going through a problem in life, which I feel it could be because of my past from lineage or something. And when I go through that problem, and if I'm aware, yes, I am struggling with this difficulty. So instead of asking, why am I going through this difficulty? Instead of that question, if I ask, what is this difficulty trying to teach me? Will that be a great upaya?
Well, anything other than asking why will be a good upaya.
Okay.
Because finding out why most of the time will not work. And if you found out why, if you found out, oh, this is happening to me because 3 lifetimes ago I cheated this person, then you can do something nice for that person. But that's only if you actually find out the truth And there's no guarantee of that, because how will you really know? You can get a story from somewhere, you can get a testimony from somewhere, you can have a dream or whatever. But how do you really know that that's the case? On the other hand, if you should, it is very useful to be asking yourself, okay, here I am in this condition. What can I do with this? Here I am. I'm different from other people. But do I need to continue focusing on this only? Are there other things that I can focus on that will still, maybe it will not be the thing that I really wanted to do in life, but it still may be satisfying. It still may be useful for other people. And it may permit me to see my existence and the nature of life a little more clearly if I try to understand if I try simply to look at it from a perspective other than, why is this happening to me? Any perspective other than that, quite possibly, can give you good results.
And when we say good results, it also minimizes the karmic intensity?
Well, at least it is not increasing the karmic intensity. I don't remember where it is, but there's a passage in the Charaka Samhita where it explains that if a person has a disease, some texts, in fact, I am told the Maitreya Upanishad, but I haven't read it, so I don't know. So some texts say that if you have a disease, you should never seek any kind of treatment for the disease, because the disease is due to your karma. You should endure the karma, and once you have endured the karma, things will be better. And then Charak says, well, undoubtedly, this is one way of looking at the reality, and we can't argue with that. On the other hand, if you have the karma of meeting a physician, now, a physician who knows what he's doing, and a physician who is able to actually do something, as opposed to a quack, if you meet someone who can help you, it would be a karma to say, no, you can't, I will not take help from you because I must experience the results of my karmas. So, in my opinion, when you find yourself in a situation that is very complex, the first thing you want to do is not making it any more complex. And one way to do that would be to ask yourself, why me? What have I done wrong? Why does God hate me? And all kinds of other things that do nothing other than take your attention away from the situation. Here's the situation. This is your reality. And since this is my reality, what can I do about my reality? Yes, I have to experience it, but how can I act differently? Is there a way I can act differently so that this reality, even if it can't go away, at least is not taking up so much of my time and attention and causing me so many problems? But in order to do that, you need to be able to look at things from a different perspective, other than just the law of karma is so unfair, I've been such a good person all my lifetime, and now this has occurred, and how can it possibly be? And what is that doing for you? How is that helping you?
So it's a dead-end question to ask.
It's a dead-end question, in my opinion.
And also, once we know that, okay, this is the challenge that is put across to me, and maybe there is something from my past life, or maybe some randomness of the collective community that I'm living, whatever that is. If I'm supposed to go through this difficulty, and if I become aware, okay, this is a challenge and I'm going through this difficulty, and I make a prayer, what is this really, really trying to teach me? Is that a way, can we really call it as a very good upaya? Again, I'm just asking because giving tools for people.
when you're in a situation that is challenging, it's useful to remember that you are evolving, you're changing moment by moment. You are not the same person you were even a year ago, much less 20, 30, 50 years ago.
You can never step into the same river twice.
You cannot, because everything is continuing to move. So my mentor always used to say, the world is the teacher for everyone who is willing to be taught. Mm-hmm. And what is life about? But it's about learning things. I mean, this is not just you and me. It's, suppose you have a squirrel out there. The squirrel needs to know which trees have nuts and which trees don't. The squirrel needs to know where the cat and the dog and the all the other predators are. The old guy who's going to try to beat it up. The squirrel needs to know where is a good place to have a home. The squirrel needs to know when is the right time to sleep and when is the right time. The squirrel needs to know what is going to happen in the winter and what's going to happen in the summer and the rains, and how do I organize this properly. Some of this material, some of what the squirrel knows is going to be instinctual behavior. It will be born into the squirrel. Mm-hmm. But some of it, the squirrel will have to learn, because each different environment is different. Mm-hmm. One of the things that has been challenging, the tigers mm-hmm. are endangered now. There used to be, 100,000 of them in the world. Now there are 5,000 in the world. And one of the problems, so people, many years ago thought, well, we'll just raise them in captivity. And then they took the tigers they raised in captivity and let them out into the forest, and they all starved to death because they did not know how to hunt. They have to be taught by their mothers how to hunt. Otherwise, they will not know how to hunt. So teaching and learning is something that happens to all species, and especially to us. So to have that attitude that I am ready to learn from every situation, at every moment, that is, in my opinion, and that's what I was taught by my mentor, that's the attitude that is going to give you the best results in life. You should be looking at every situation, not just the ones that are causing you trouble, but the ones that are, suppose someone comes to you and says, I'm awarding you this, here I'm handing you this big pile of money. Then you should always be asking, not just congratulating yourself on obviously they have recognized what a glorious person I am. That's why the money has come to me. You should always be asking, why is this money coming to me? Who is this guy? Why is he giving it to me? There should always be some curiosity about what's going on, mm-hmm. especially when it's something that is a big problem that has come into your life. So, curiosity, yes. Why? You can always ask why, as long as you don't insist on getting an answer. You might get an answer. Maybe you'll get an answer in your next lifetime. But what can this teach me means, what can I do with this that is going to have a positive effect on my life in some way? If I understand that I've run for office 10 times and failed every time. Well, I mean, number one, people are going to stop giving me a ticket to run because I'm failing every time. But I should be asking myself, what should I be learning from this? One is, maybe I should not be a politician. Maybe I should be doing something other than that. But the situation wants to teach you something at all times. Mm-hmm. It is information that is present there, and your job is to be able to take that information and figure out how best can I implement this information in my current experience to figure out how to keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. So Absolutely. Everyone, in my opinion, should be asking themselves, what can every experience teach
me. So when we look back, some people, they say, I struggle to give up sugar. For me, I struggle with my sweet tooth. Sometimes for me, the best approach of if I have a problem with my cravings for sugar is I should not keep sugar at my home. If I have it, it'll enter my system within no time. So even though I teach about sugar, I still struggle with it. So the question, when we talk about Pratnyaparada is like sometimes you know this is not good for you, but somewhere there is this force that is coming in, like people getting into addiction issues, like with drugs or alcohol or smoking. They know that this is not good for me. We know a lot of doctors who smoke, even though they know that. Would we can connect that with something with karma there?
Definitely. I remember meeting the chief physician, I don't remember his name, he was a warrior certainly, chief physician at Kottakkal 40 years ago. And he was sitting there, we were chatting, and he was smoking while we were sitting there. So when I think of Pratnyaparad, a crime, aparad, against your innate wisdom, prajna. Because prajna is not, prajna in the cosmic sense is something you get after you've meditated and done a lot of sadhana. But there is the prajna that is natural to the organism, because that's why your organism has survived all this time, because it has been able to learn this is good, this is not so good. I'm going to go in this direction. Why do you not go in this direction? And what Charakacharya explains is that it's due to upada. Mm-hmm. And upada is often defined as allurement, something that attracts your attention. And it attracts your attention so much that while you're attracted by it, you can't see anything else, you can't hear anything else, nothing else. People will try to bring you back into, but no, that thing has now, it is big. It has become so large you can't take your attention away from it. And I like to, the word upada, upa in Sanskrit means, one meaning of it is secondary, and da means a foundation. So when ideally what you should be focusing on is the prana in your system. If the prana is moving properly, tejas will be automatically enkindled properly everywhere it needs to be. And if that's working properly, then all of the dhatus will be created. There will be plenty of ojas, and you will be able to remain in a state of being generally healthy most of the time. And that's because you were relying on prana as your da, as your foundation. When you find sugar or smoking, tobacco, or gambling, or whatever it is, as the thing that you are relying on, that's the thing that you are leaning on. I'm sitting on this chair, so this chair is supporting me. If this chair is prana, that's a good thing. If the chair is alcohol, for example, my organism is going to adapt to it as much as it can, but there will come a point that the adaptation will not work anymore. Mm-hmm. So when you are aware that there is something like sugar, for example, that no matter how much you try to re-educate yourself about, you still can't quite get beyond, then I believe in the strategy that you have is the best strategy. If it is not there, it is going to be more difficult for you to indulge in it. You would have to get, you'd be sitting there thinking, I need some mithai, but the mithai wala is way over there. Mm-hmm. You would have to get up, you would have to get over there. You might be open and might not be open, might not exactly have the sweets that you want. It's much easier simply to keep doing other things when it's not immediately right in front of you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very excellent way of doing that. The problem is that not everyone has even that much self-control to be able to keep it out of their life. So you have to, I think, find out how much self-control do you have. We hope you have some, because otherwise your life is not going to last very long. So maybe you limit yourself to one piece of chocolate of this size, you measure it very carefully, once per day. And probably what will happen is you'll spend the first part of the day thinking about what is going to be the experience, and the last part of the day thinking about what the experience was like. But still, at least you're limiting it to where you're not consuming it all day long, which still is going to be better for your organism. Mm-hmm. So we can't guarantee that you won't think about it all the time, but we can at least, if you are thinking about it all the time, of course, if you can substitute something else, that is also potentially good. But if you are going to think about it all day long, at least limit it in the physical world, so that you're not continuously repeating the idea of, oh, I'm going to enjoy it now. Then you enjoy it. So that immediate desire and immediate fulfillment of the desire, that's going to keep creating a bigger neurological pathway, a bigger karmic rut in the road that you'll just keep falling into more and more. So, number one, you have to acknowledge you have a problem. This applies to everybody. Mm-hmm. And many people simply can't acknowledge they have a problem until they have a real problem. Many people who are alcoholics, they refuse to admit to anything until they crash in some way. But if once you acknowledge you have a problem, then you can do something about it. And then you can find ways to address the situation. And in the case of alcohol, for example, you have to understand that you can't. If you're an alcoholic, you cannot drink. Because a lot of alcoholics, after 1 year or 2 years, they will say, oh, I'm in control of it. I don't have that problem anymore.
They're back to square one.
And they're back to square one. And I've seen this many times. Mm-hmm. And so when you know that this is a problem, you have to be very honest with yourself. And you have to say, until further notice, this is a problem, and I have to behave like it is going to be a problem indefinitely. You can reevaluate.
And this question, what is this teaching me?
What is this teaching you? Well, one thing it's teaching you is that you as a personality, there is something that you do not have control over. Now, which is a useful thing to know. I mean, there are plenty of things we don't have control over. We don't have control of the sun rising. We don't have control over but there are other things we think we have control over. We think we have control over, what goes on in the house. We think we have control over how we behave at work or whatever it might be. We think we have control over a lot of things. But when you realize you don't have control over this one big thing in your life, then you realize that, in fact, my idea that I have control itself is a problem. Mm-hmm. And honestly, who really is in control of their lives to any extent other than, yes, you can choose when you get up, you can choose what you eat to some degree and when you eat it and so on. But a lot of what happens is outside of your control. And this is why it's so important to have a proper attitude towards, you were one individual in a very big environment. And the environment has been generated by the law of karma, just like you have. And the law of karma is, you are interacting with the law and karma via this environment. So, in what way can you structure your relationship with the environment so that it is beneficial to you and to the environment. Because that's what a relation, my mentor used to say, a fair exchange is no robbery. And there's a famous saying in Hindi, Bina mange sumile dud, mange sumile pani, kenche se liye khon, ye gorak bani. If you don't ask for anything from the environment, from nature, providence, whatever you want to call it, it will feed you milk because you're not asking for anything. So automatically, it will support you in some way. If you ask for something, you'll get water, and you're not going to die of thirst, which is a big plus. But that's not the same thing as you just relying on providence or God or whatever you want to call it to take care of what needs to be taken care of in your life. That doesn't mean do nothing. That means don't worry about trying to organize everything in such a way that you think is clever, that is going to benefit you, because how much do you really know about what is going to benefit you? You think you know what your self-interest is, but what your real self-interest is may be totally different from what you think. So you need to have the environment assisting you so that you can see that if you and the environment are working together, then you're going to be co-creating a situation that's good for you and for the environment, and then it will continue to want to benefit you because you're benefiting it. On the other hand, if you grab things, if you steal things, then what you're getting is blood. And of course, khun ka badla khun. If you take blood, you're going to have to pay blood at some point. So if you take from things, things are going to be taken from you. And that's where the law of karma really kicks in. And then next lifetime or 2 lifetimes down the road, people will be stealing things from you, and you'll be saying, oh, this is not fair, and you'll go hunt down the criminal and beat them up or kill them or whatever, instead of recognizing that you were the person who was doing this in the past. And of course, we don't want you to go in the other direction either. And then you'll think, oh, I was such a bad person in the past, I must simply give away everything, and I was really bad, I must still be bad. Well, you were bad back then. Who you are today is who you are today. So, okay, somebody came and stole it, it's gone now. It needed to go. Let it go. Continue moving forward. Keep moving forward. Every day, you are continuing to move forward in your reality. You're continuing to move forward in your life. You're continuing to go ahead, and every day you have the choice of aligning with prajna or not aligning with prajna. And that's what, the prajna, this native wisdom of your organism, is what's coming to you from the environment. So if you pay attention to the inside, you're automatically paying attention to the outside, if you're really doing it properly, and vice versa.
So once I become aware, okay, these are the things that I'm struggling to have control, for example, sugar, or for example, being distracted to focus on studying something or something like that. Once I know, okay, these are the challenges, so I redesign my environment to my best possibility.
Yes.
That's one way. And maybe that is the lesson that I need to learn.
Maybe that's the lesson you need to learn. And maybe you will do it in such a way successfully that you'll be able to bring this behavior under control completely. And maybe you'll able to bring it under control, not completely, but at least better than the condition that it was in before.
Okay.
And then you have learned, number one, that you can have some control, and number two, that there's still part of this tendency that you have that is not yet controlled. That doesn't mean it will never be controlled, but it means it's not yet controlled, and you have to acknowledge that. Now, a lot of people nowadays, they start to comment on this, and then they tell themselves how terrible they are, and they have so much self-hatred. But why? What are you hating yourself for? Or why are you loving, do you think you're great? Why do you think you're horrible? Why do you have an opinion about yourself even? Instead of simply acknowledging that this is the reality, I am adapting to it, and asking yourself periodically, could I do better? Is there a way that I could do something more?
And that's where we progress spiritually, and
that's where the progress is. You evaluate what you're doing. If you feel like, and of course it has to be, if you're meditating 10 hours a day and you're neglecting your family and you're neglecting your work, that's not going to help you. It has to, everything that you're responsible for in your life, and that includes you and everybody in your family, and what you have to do to maintain your situation, all of those things have to be addressed properly. And you have to apply as much attention to each one as you need to get the result.
So, if we have to sum up this concept of law of karma, I think whatever challenges that you're going through, it has a possible correlation with some karma in your past.
Definitely. It has some correlation. What the correlation may be,
that's the next question.
That's maybe another question, but some correlation is there for sure.
And once you know these are the challenges that you're facing, instead of asking, why do I have to face these challenges, the question, what is this really trying to teach me? That's where the seed for your transformation lies.
Particularly if after you ask that question, what is this trying to teach me? And then you need to act on that in some way. Not just, this is trying to teach me that I should not eat sugar, but then you continue eating sugar. So what this means is, then you have to experiment. How can so this is trying to teach me this. How can I alter my behavior so maybe I can learn this lesson, at least partially? And you may have to try, you may have to try 100 different things before you find something that is actually going to enable you to move forward better. But there's no reason to stop, because there is always the potential that something is going to cause you to look at things in that different way, that's going to assist you to actually learn a valuable lesson and move forward.
In the business world, they say constraints are the seed for creativity.
Yes. And that's a good way to put it. And this applies to any kind of constraint. And what have we seen in human experience? Here's, one constraint is, if we want to move, we have to walk. So, walking is nice, but if you want to go from Kanyakumari to Kailash, it's a long walk. After a while, people realized, well, maybe we could get an animal to help us. And then, so maybe there was the horse or the cow or the, the ox, the bullock or whatever. And then after a while, they thought, well, they don't move, they move more slowly than other things do, and you have to find hay for them and whatever. And then they found that there were machines that could do things. Pretty soon people were taking boats, and they were taking trains, and now there are airplanes. So, and they have their own karmic problems. They create, the airplane creates a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere, but it does permit you to get from point A to point B a lot faster. So people have looked at situations, and they have experimented with ways to facilitate what they believe was positive change, and then you evaluate and you see, well, how positive was the change, and what were the negative repercussions, and how can we do things different? And so, therefore, we now have electric cars and electric other vehicles. And of course, there's a problem with finding the raw materials to make enough batteries and what have you, but at least that will not be damaging the atmosphere. So people are as long as human, the essence of the human reality is we've experimented with things. So far as I know, humans are the only animal that uses fire. Yes, there are other animals, crows, chimpanzees, who use tools, but humans use tools. There are definitely animals that use language in a limited kind of way, but we use language, and we have learned how to convert language into symbols that we can leave somewhere for 1,000 years, and somebody can come and be able to identify what we were saying and get meaning out of it, which is not something anyone else can do. So how did humans do this? They experimented. They were looking for different ways of working with the 5 elements that make up the world in which we live. And if we as a species are doing this, so you as an individual should be doing this too, in your own way, whatever that is.
And to sum up, I think one point that I want to re-emphasize what you mentioned. When we ask, why am I going through these challenges, they fall into the trap of self-limiting or draining their self-esteem, and why me? And this is where they go into depressive, anxious mode, and that is where they...
Asking why something happened is fine, as long as you don't go in the direction of, yes, why me?
Why me, yeah.
Oh, it is so unfortunate. None of this is of utility.
It's a very dangerous question.
It's a question that is it's a poisonous kind of question, because it's encouraging you to focus on your deficiencies instead of finding a way to encourage you to focus on your ability to adapt. That's what humans do. The more you can adapt, even if you can only adapt this much, that's 1,000 times better than asking, why me? Oh, and spending all of your time thinking about your condition instead of acknowledging your condition and evaluating what you can do about it, whatever that might be, however limited that might be, and doing it and seeing what the result is you get.
I think that's a very phenomenal spiritual lesson as well. Like
completely, definitely. This is. Spirituality is not something far away. It's an acknowledgement that the not being limited by our individual personalities allows us to expand our awareness in the direction of what the Satyam Ratam Brahat, the Satchidananda really is.
In fact, when you look back at all the trauma-related problems people go through and they justify, the question is, it happened to me and why me? So something is wrong with me. And that they just, like a confirmed bias, and then they just magnify the rest of their life depending on that, why me? So that's why it's so important, instead of asking why me, what is this teaching me? I think it's a very profound way to analyze and take law of karma in a very spiritual pursuit.
Yes, I mean, again, when you go back to why me, if you are a person who has already become extremely aware and extremely sophisticated in your analysis, you may be able to come up with a worthwhile answer. But if you're saying, why me, and you start to comment on your opinion of yourself, if you were really such a stupid person, your opinion of yourself is stupid also. So how can you possibly take that opinion seriously when you've just defined yourself as being a person whose opinion is not worth anything? So instead of getting caught up in that, and absolutely, so many people are caught up in that, and they're so caught up in that they simply cannot stop their minds from moving. So anything different that they do, and if you can get them to really ask, what is this teaching me? That definitely is a big improvement over
A lot of things.
a lot of things.
Thank you so much, Svoboda. It was such a wonderful pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you.